It's just all insane. The schedule is crazy.
The schedule has been nuts.
And I guess you could call it 4 gigs coming up this week if you count the Youth and Acoustic Showcase as a gig.
Right. Yeah, which I can now help with if needed, but I'm probably not needed, so I probably won't.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so
here we are.
Here we are. Let's talk. Let's get into the crazy.
Into the crazy. Into the Crazy. Is that a good band name?
For some bands, maybe.
Maybe not for.
Maybe not for a band that we would be in. Yeah. Yeah. So where to start? We don't have our little thing up.
Oh, yeah. My notes.
A little behind the scenes.
I mean, the main thing that we just did was we drove back from Grand Junction.
Yep, that was the main thing.
Yeah, because we played in Grand Junction on both Friday and Sunday night.
Right.
Which I did not know why we were playing at this one, like the same venue both nights until, well, I think on Saturday, or maybe until we got there. And it's because the big wine festival that goes on once a year in Grand Junction is on Saturday night.
Right.
And we were playing at a winery that kind of bookends that festival.
Yeah.
So that's why we were playing.
So apparently a bunch of people were in town for the big wine festival. That side of Colorado is wine country and peach country and cherries. You were eating Palisade peaches. Well, we were.
Yeah.
For the last half of the summer, we're going to have to start earlier next year.
Yes.
But we were playing at a winery. So that you had a nice stage set up, like kind of in the middle of great vines and stuff, and they had a nice green space area. And the crowds were amazing.
It was Cole Terrace Winery, by the way. I told Suzanne about it. She called me right before we went on stage for Sunday's first set. And she was like, you answered? I figured you'd probably have a gig. And I was like, I do. I'm about to get on stage. What's up? I'm at Cole Terrace Winery. And she's like, oh my God, I love that wine.
Yeah. They do a bunch of stuff. I had a white called Grand Valley. I think it was just called Grand Valley. So I don't know if it's a blend or whatever, but it was awesome.
Well, they are a double gold winning vineyard. What is it called?
Vintner?
Vintner? Is that what it is?
I think that's what the winemaker is called.
Okay.
Yeah, a Vintner. Anyway, the crowds were wild. I was expecting them to be a little more subdued.
Yeah, me too. But I guess people are drinking when they're at a winery. So
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Friday night was, pretty normal, I would say.
Pretty normal for us, which is great.
I would say between 300 and 400 people.
Yeah.
And it went just fine, and it went great. And we wound up doing a couple encores. Like they were...
Yeah.
Sunday was interesting because Sunday people were wild.
They really were. I thought they was going to be kind of toned down. Actually, Scott, the owner of the winery, told us that Sunday was probably going to be a little more chill and we would have to work harder to get them energized. But no.
It did not turn out to be true.
They were crazy.
And the second set especially was just like, it was on. People were just going crazy.
Yeah. There was a woman who was like climbing on parts of the stage. Do you remember that? Like the stage had some weird metal poles and stuff.
Yeah, I guess that I haven't for support because they do have extreme winds in the Palisade area.
Okay.
So there were these large poles that were going around the stage. Yeah, to sort of,
There was a woman hanging on it like it was a jungle gym.
Yeah.
Like right in front of us. I was like, is she trying to get on stage? But she didn't.
Nope. She was just hanging on the thing.
Yeah.
So it turned into a barricade type situation. And it was interesting because people really liked it and were standing, but they were all standing like 10 feet away from the stage. And then just a couple people came up. I think when we started Gypsy, maybe, because I remember she had a Gypsy t-shirt on.
Oh, okay.
So they were like, oh, it's my song. And when they came up and they were sort of like creeping up, like, is this okay? And I was like, no, come, like, get, And then as soon as those people did, everybody else just, they were not sure if it was okay to like, it was an interesting crowd moment to watch of like people want to do it. They're just not sure if it's okay. And then a couple people tried it. And then as soon as it was okay for them, then everybody like moved forward.
Yeah. A crowd is sort of like an organism.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It you know, notes from the playing. Pretty standard show. We did kind of a lot more new songs than we would normally do.
Yeah.
I guess Vic was thinking that people would enjoy more Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, we were thinking wine crowd, where normally our crowd is a little bit, if you had to average it out, it's probably a little more of a beer crowd.
Right. That's
and this
fair.
was obviously a wine crowd because we're at a winery.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking Fleetwood Mac. So we added more new tunes than we normally, or dusted off, more tunes than we normally do. They went fine. We just ran them at soundcheck. So, I mean, I don't really have any musical notes to learn from. I don't think. All I have to talk about is how gorgeous it was out there. Perfect weather.
Amazing. Perfect weather. I'll get some pictures and maybe try to throw them in the pod. The cliffs, and you're surrounded by all this kind of like red rock looking stuff.
And the way that you see the relief of the shape of all the rocks when the sun's going down, it's a painting.
It's unbelievable.
We went on a couple hikes and drove around Colorado National Monument, which was spectacular, right at sunrise.
Right.
So it was like a nice little vacation.
Well, and apparently we were talking to the crowd after. I guess that's one huge mistake that I personally made, is that we ended the second set and walked off stage.
Second and last set,
sorry. Last set of the night, last song of the night. And we walked off stage and we were listening to the audience to see, which we often do, do they really want an encore, or is it a couple people just yelling one more song? Yeah. Or like, are they ready for this to be over? And it really seemed like they were ready for it to be over.
Yeah, the applause died off immediately.
Yeah, it died off immediately.
It was very clear.
And then people were like turning to each other and talking.
And
they
house
were like,
music came up.
House music came up. And then so I tried to duck on stage to put down my guitar because I was still wearing my guitar. And I had nowhere to, it was gravel, the back lot, it was gravel, and there was like just nowhere to put it down. Yeah. So I was like, oh, no one's paying attention anymore, and the house music is up. So I thought I could just duck up there. But as soon as they saw me, they were like, oh, it's an encore. And we had already decided we're not doing an encore, and it just would have been way too confused. I mean, we're not even talking like, this wasn't like 30 seconds. This was like 2 minutes or something. And it just would have been really weird if we came back. People would not have understood what was going on. But a select part of the crowd, and then so we had to come out and just talk and stuff. But I have learned my lesson, and I think I'm going to make sure I have a guitar stand
off stage. Oh,
so that I have somewhere safe to put it down.
I didn't know you walked off stage with your guitar on.
I don't always, but in this case, I was kind of hustling. To, and I didn't know if we were going to go right back up, and if we were going to go right back up, I wanted to be wearing it so we could start quickly.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Right.
Which I thought we were going to go back up because Friday we had to go back up 2 times.
We just did 2 songs.
Yeah, that's right. We only went back, but we had to do one more song than we thought. Yeah. So anyway, that was our adventure in Grand Junction, Colorado. Western Colorado, really beautiful. Very different part of the state.
It sure is. And it was great to see Chris Kresge, who booked us.
That's right.
He's put a couple of our songs in the Colorado playlist that he maintains on Spotify. It's a playlist where he picks what he sees as the top 100 songs that are active in Colorado right now. And anytime he adds a song, he has to kick a song off the list.
Right.
And we were on that list for a good 9 months.
Yeah.
Or longer, maybe even a year. He really complimented us on those songs. He's a radio personality. He's been a talent buyer for a long, long time. He's run a bunch of festivals and stuff.
As well as a singer-songwriter in his own right.
Right.
And he just had moved to Grand Junction, which is why he booked us to come out there. And he has a new band that's a little, I think he's calling it Chris K and Friends. And it's a little trio with him playing guitar and singing, bass player, and dobro. And they did some of my favorite tunes. They did some Billy Joe Shaver. They did some Haggard and, and then some of Chris's original tunes. And it really opened my eyes. They were, for the situation and actually for us as a band, they were the perfect opener because they were not fatiguing at all.
Oh.
people loved it. Like people loved
Right.
it and people were cheering, but because it was acoustic and because it sort of didn't have drums and whatever,
Right.
it was like a nice,
It's
like
like
warm
late
up.
afternoon, like the sun's going down.
Sun's going down,
Yeah.
and it was a great warm up. It was, I think, part of why we did as well as we did is people were like really in the mood, but they weren't like, hey, we just got blasted for an hour by another loud band. We're
distorted
a little
guitars.
Yeah. You know, we're just a little fatigued, and I think it really lined up perfectly.
That is an interesting observation.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. Like how you think of an opening band as just being like almost a time killer, like just someone to like to warm up the crowd, obviously to warm up the crowd a little bit, but like thinking about what kind of band is the right warm up for your band.
Right.
That's a whole topic I've never thought about.
Yeah. I mean, and I get it now. I didn't get it. I mean, I was in my late 20s or whatever, but like I didn't even get it then. But like there were a couple of tours that we were on where No Address got asked to tone it down. Like, you guys got to tone it down. We're like uncomfortable following that. Or basically what they were saying is you're just wearing people out.
Right.
And then, you know, which now I understand. And now it would be more cognizant of kind of trying to ride that dial a little bit of like, let's not blow this crowd out because our job is to guide them in.
Right.
And at the time it was like, no, we're just going to go as hard as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we got asked to back down, we would back down a little, but you know.
But you didn't really get why, right?
I didn't at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're just jealous of us, like showing them up or, you know, whatever. Yeah. Like that's the first thing you think.
You thought like they're asking you to not be so good.
Yeah. Right. And that's really not what they were saying. It's just like, man, you just are like, and then by the time we go up, people are like, give us a second. Like to get, you know what I mean? Just like, we just got like really blasted and we're, you know, it's not like those bands didn't do good after us and whatever, but they were like, I understand that we were kind of, you know, almost like we were just overshooting it. And then they would have to like almost start from scratch again.
Right.
Instead of starting from a warm crowd, they were starting from like a little tired crowd.
Oh my gosh.
So they would have to start. Now I see that they would have to start and wind people back up. And the first part of their set would have to be almost a break for the crowd.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and they would always get them and they would always do good. And those bands were amazing. But we did get asked several times, like, you guys got to take it down a notch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And now I understand that, you know, but at the time I was just like, you know, so that's kind of an interesting thing. You though had a busy week with shows, mainly shows you went to.
Just one show, I think.
Well, no, because you went and saw Mitski and...
oh, gosh, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay, so on Wednesday, I went and saw Mitski at Fiddler's Green. We mentioned that I was going to do that.
Yeah.
And I do not connect with her music. I thought I did, because I've listened... I like some of her hits. Actually, I love all of her hits. And I've listened to one entire album of hers, which is admittedly very, very creative. Like, some of the songs I didn't like, some of them I did. But I thought... I don't know. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. So I got there. The place was packed.
Yeah.
The green was completely packed. I did find a place to sit. It was pretty easy because I'm just one person. I was texting you like, it's 40 minutes in and she hasn't played a single song I recognize. Not a single hit from the radio. And this looks like pretty edgy modern dance. Like,
right. You said the performance was like just...
Oh, yeah. At the end of the first song, she was doing this thing where she would cover her face with her hands and then push her hands out like she was pushing someone away, like in front of her. And she just kept doing that. She kept doing it at the end of the song. And then the song ended and she kept doing it for like 30 seconds in silence.
Well, that's...
like, it was just so weird.
You don't see that often.
Yeah. And then finally the next song started and she kept doing it for a little while and then finally stopped. At one point, she was down on her hands and knees, panting with her tongue hanging out like a dog, walking around, like crawling around stage like a dog. She spent a fair amount of time on her back, standing on chairs, dancing in certain, very modern ways. And good for her. She's doing something that is sophisticated enough to not appeal to me. I don't get it. Yeah. Wow. I left after 45 minutes because I was just like, I think I've given this a fair shot for myself. This is not me.
Not getting
the crowd loved it.
Yeah.
The crowd was singing along to stuff that I didn't recognize. The opener was Ethel Cain, and also you wanted to see Ethel Cain. I was texting you about, oh my God, I don't get this either.
Yeah, you were. I was very surprised because a lot of her songs on the recordings are pretty anthemic.
Yes, they are. I love American Teenager.
Sure.
And she did close with that.
Yeah.
But she opened with a sludgy 2-chord song. The second song was a sludgy 2-chord song. The third song was a sludgy 2-chord song. All of these with like, on a scale of 1 to 10, the energy level was like a 1.5.
Wow.
And I was just like, what is the attraction here? I don't understand this.
Yeah.
This is not entertaining to me.
But you said the audience was also into
Of course,
Ethel.
yes. Yeah. She would say this next song is about Nebraska, and they'd be like, "Wah!" You know, okay.
People love Nebraska. People do love Nebraska.
Well, I guess she's got a song maybe called Nebraska. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yes, I went to that show and I left.
I wondered. My theory was these were obviously young people. These are obviously new artists.
Yeah.
And I almost wondered if like there's some element of like, the kids don't want to like what their parents like, or they want to like something that their parents don't get.
Yeah.
So at some point you've got to keep getting weirder and weirder. Even in your performance style. I mean, I wouldn't say Ethel's recorded music is weird. No. But like, maybe the low energy thing is about being like, your parents are not going to get that this is 10 minutes of droney.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but it was pretty funny that and I was going to go with you, but I just had too much stuff to get done.
Good thing you didn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe you would have seen something I didn't see. I don't know.
And you know what? I feel like that's totally okay. I mean, if people are connecting with something, it's not necessary that everybody connects.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And none of these comments are meant to say that Ethel Cain is bad or her show is bad or that Mitski is bad or that her show is bad. They're objectively great. Yeah. Mitski, I would say, is objectively great. I just subjectively, Mitski isn't great for me. Oh, low battery on my phone. I don't want to press stop there. I want to plug it in. Here we go. There we go.
There we go.
So anyway, that was followed up the next night by going to see a much smaller show. So instead of Fiddler's Green, I went to Black Buzzard, downtown Denver.
Right.
That's one of Tony Mason's venues that he books.
Which I meant to ask, and we talked about Tony recently, if not last week. How big is Black Buzzard, do you think?
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
It's smaller than Lost Lake.
Oh. Wow.
It's underground. It's real small.
Okay.
Yeah. 100 max.
Right.
Yeah. So the reason I went was because an old friend reached out, Brent Barstad, who I have not seen in, I was guessing 7 years.
Wow.
He was one of my
that long.
He was one of my first students he was in the first class I ever ran in my basement in Boulder. I ran a stage performance class and had like 3 or 4 people in it. And he signed up for that class. And then he was part of the Legend Makers kickoff show.
He sure was.
Still have photos of him rocking out. He was a big fan of Guitar Villains. So
yes,
he
that's
sang with
right.
Guitar Villains a lot.
That's right. He was Guitar Villains. Yeah.
Just the most like upbeat guy, and he's a huge music fan. So he has invited me to a lot of shows I haven't been able to go to, but he's always going to shows. Yeah.
Which you really appreciate. And I mean,
and he's good taste.
He has great taste. And there's not a nicer guy in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw Post Paradise. He's friends with the people in Post Paradise. They are a band from Fort Collins that's been around for 15 years.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. They have a cellist. So it's bass, drums, male guitarist, vocalist, and female cellist.
Cool.
Electric cello. Pretty cool. They play like indie rock. Mm-hmm. They're great. And then they were followed up. They were opening for a touring band from LA called City of Sound. They were spectacularly good. Well, they were on tracks, but they were spectacularly good. Yeah. They were, there was no bassist. So it was drums, lead vocal, male lead vocal / guitar. And, no, the male lead vocalist played some keys sometimes, and then there was a guitarist. And then there was like a literal anime character playing violin. I sent you a quick little photo.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
My gosh. If you drew a cartoon of an anime girl playing violin, she looked exactly like this. So she had like those enormous boots. They're like 4 inches of rubber on the bottom, and then like 20 buckles all the way up to her knees.
Yeah, right.
And then white thigh-high socks, like with little frills on the top, pulled up to the middle of her thighs, and then a short skirt, and then she had like some kind of black thing on underneath, but then like a ratty, like, but designed ratty, like white, kind of like neo apocalyptic,
right,
torn white shirt that was all sexy, and then her bow. Oh, and then her, like, I think she had a wig on. Either that or her hair was like super blonde, bleach blonde. And then her bow had not MIDI lights. It had LED lights on it.
Wow.
So she was just so cute. So cute. She was the star of the show for me.
Yeah.
But they were great. Really high energy, really brought it. We talk about how Petty Mix brings it.
Right.
They brought it. Like, they played, the crowd was not thick. There were maybe 20... maybe 30 people in the room at most.
Yeah.
And they played like it was a stadium. Not like a stadium. They played with the energy that like every one of you deserves the best we have to offer.
That is so great to hear.
Yeah. It was rock, indie rock, kind of like anthemic and big, a little bit synthy. I like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good show. That's, well, like when you were seeing Sophia Zella in California, sometimes those shows in those very small rooms can be as impactful or more, I would argue, than a big stadium show, because you're right there. You're right there, and it's legitimately live. It's not just like so many lights that you're just, you know what I mean? You're just like looking right at them.
You're like having a relationship with the band.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that kind of was our week. All I did was boring studio stuff all week. And it's not boring, but I talk about it all the time. So what am I going to say? Looking forward to next week though. Cool stuff coming up. You've got another Journey gig.
Yeah, we said at the beginning, it's crazy. So I guess you could say 4 gigs.
Right.
So I've got Thursday. I went ahead and accepted a church gig for a Thursday night church service. I'm not sure. It's the first one I've done with them. So I've got that. I am pleased to report that gig is no longer a growth gig for me. Like, right. I've gotten past the nerves. I've gotten past the need to write my own charts. I just like check out their charts and I'm like, yep, that's fine. I listen to the song as many times as I need to get it enough in my head that, that I'm going to do fine without thinking. But I've gotten to the point where this is important. For the longest time, I have had to make sure that my notes and my prep were sufficient to let me play well with half a brain, because I would be nervous. And when you're nervous, you don't think straight. And I didn't even know like which part of my brain wouldn't be working. So I had to just over prepare.
Right.
And I'm starting to get a pretty good handle on how much I need to prepare and what I can rely on myself to execute.
Yeah. And to kind of pull off in the moment.
Yeah.
And,
without being overly ambitious. But, and now I know that like I'm preparing a lot less for those church gigs because I just know, a lot of the songs sound the same. They're very predictable.
They're pretty predictable. Yeah.
But I know what parts to pay attention to. Like, this is a part that I'm likely to flub up on if I don't run it. So anyway, yes, I have that on Thursday. And then Friday, we are playing, the Petty Mix Experience is playing at something called Hoedown Hill.
Yeah.
In Windsor, Colorado.
Bit of a festival. And, apparently, I just was looking at the calendar. I thought it was local kind of legends, the Long Run opening for us, and the calendar now says that it's a touring Eagles band from California.
Oh, really?
So.
Oh, interesting. I did a search for the Long Run Eagles tribute in the car the other day, and I found more than one. So I thought it was going to be the local guys too.
Maybe it's another Long Run.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting.
Well, I was so looking forward to seeing them live. I've, of course, seen them on, Facebook and YouTube and stuff, but I've never literally seen them in person.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's going to be a good show. Windsor, Colorado is about an hour north.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be good. And then you continue to have gigs.
Yep. I have a Diamond Empire gig on Saturday, which I had thought last week that I was going to have to play an hour of instrumental jazz for. Turns out there is no jazz. I think it has changed. It's going to be an hour of light pop songs, basically.
Yeah.
So I'll still work on my jazz. I took a lesson with Nate to kind of get my head in gear, but then we went away for a few days and I haven't been able to work on anything.
Yeah. So how's the prep going for that Diamond gig?
Just fine.
It's a lot of new stuff, relatively.
It's a handful of new things. But you know what? I have so many charts from the Tunisia bass player because do you remember? I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast, but I was talking to Bijou Barbosa, bass player, and mentioned that I was subbing for Tunisia, and he knows the regular bass player, Matt.
Sure.
And apparently Matt is a guy, well, he studied under Bijou at CU.
Oh, okay.
Matt was Bijou's student, but Matt likes to make charts for pretty much any song he plays, like nice ones, like musical charts in Sibelius or something. And he just sends a whole batch of them to Bijou every once in a while, like sends him like 200 or 300 songs. And he's got like hundreds and hundreds of these. He sent me his entire chart book, his entire pop rock, like funk chart book.
Yeah. You said it was like 800.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I've got new songs coming at me for this weekend gig. And a lot of them, I'm just pulling up his chart, and it's a nice move forward for me as well to like, instead of making my own chart, I'm just reading someone else's chart. So it's a little practice doing that, making a note or two if I need to, but it's, helping expand my mind a little bit more.
Yeah. We were talking about that in the car, how it's easier when you make your own chart and you're making notes for your specific things that you might keep missing, or I've mentioned on the pod, I started preparing for showcases differently where I would learn all the songs and just get them to like, I can kind of play along, and then I would make my charts because then I would know what I needed to put on there to help me remember. A very different skill and a much more practical skill is being able to look at a chart that someone else has made and use that to navigate, and it doesn't have your own safety wheels, whatever that cliche is. So that's a great step forward. You're always finding new stuff.
I love it. Because it's like all these, I like checking things off.
Yeah.
So it's like, ooh, I can do this now. Check. Ooh, I can do this now. Check. And I just find these little tiny things. I'm like, oh, that's a thing I couldn't do last year. That's a thing I couldn't do 6 months ago.
I love it. It's so good. And then, of course, Sunday you have the youth / acoustic showcase.
Yep. At the Muse.
Yeah.
So pretty typical, hour and a half, 2 hour showcase for our students. So,
and we've talked about the Muse, cool venue, cool stuff. So next week's going to be packed. We're going to have lots to talk about. We might need to get with your camping trip coming up, which is not next week, but the week after, maybe?
It is next week.
It is next week.
I leave next Wednesday.
Okay.
October 2nd, right? So...
we'll be able to get a pod in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do one on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
But then I'm gone Wednesday through Sunday in Utah, going camping.
Yeah. We need to do some more evergreens, though, just in case.
Yeah. It's just crazy. And then I come back and we have a Petty Nicks gig where we have to do some corporate, like, dance music. And we have to learn that stuff as a band.
Right.
Sometime real soon. Oh, my gosh.
And then Cody, and then...
Yes.
And then,
oh, my gosh. It's continuing to be crazy through October. November, I only have 2 gigs.
November, it oddly slows down kind of a lot.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to focus and, all those things. But anyway, as far as this week, let's call this one good.
Yeah.
And we are sponsored this week quite literally by Colteris. Wine.
Yeah. We have some wine with us.
In Palisade. And their white wine guy, the guy who makes the white wines. Apparently, they have a guy who makes the white wines and a guy who's in charge of the reds. And I mean, and then they have crew. He's like in charge of the staff that makes the. And he traded us a good bottle of wine for a guitar pick.
That's a pretty good deal.
Because he collects guitar picks, and so he apparently has quite the collection from shows he's been to. And he was like, "Let me get one from this, and I'll get you a good bottle of wine." So we have that. But anyway. We'd like to thank Colteris and Scott and everybody there. And we're sponsored, as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.